this way and knee crossed. Don't we all look comfy on a Sunday morning?
Just get my blankie, comfort blankie.
Well, welcome all. This might be the start of something, some videos. It might just be a one-off, but it was something fun we thought we could do. So I'm Steph Bloom. I'm specialist saddle fitter. I've been a fitter for white horses for many, many years, and I'm moving more into the field of looking at fitting the rider, and again, quite specialist looking at stabilising the rider, and we're going to be talking about this quite a lot. But today has come about as a result of meeting Pauline McPherson to my right, who is a customer, but is an Enlightened Equitation trainer based up here in the Lothians in Scotland. And we just had the most fantastic chat. We went to a cafe and she very kindly bought me a hot chocolate or tea or whatever it was, and we just talked and talked and talked, and we're just aligned, light bulbs, connections, agreeing on so many things. And then more recently I've been following Gwen, partly because I'm obviously looking at people to network with in Scotland as I move my business up here. So Gwen's posts on social media were really interesting, and then Pauline uses Gwen, so suddenly it became, we've got to do this. So this is Gwen Lindsay, and I've got to read it. So it's Lothian Equine Advanced Performance Therapy. And how far do you travel?
Oh, I have car will travel.
Have car will travel.
Within reason.
When it works, when it doesn't break down.
Yeah. I travel over all of southern Scotland, Central Belt. I'm currently going to Aberdeen, certainly every couple of months or so on. And Pauline, you travel a bit, would depend on...
Around the Lothians, but if clients can get together, 3 or 4 people, I'm willing to go a lot further.
Yeah. So that's got all of that out of the way. Okay, so you know who we are and whether you might be able to use us directly, but that's not what today's about. This is... The conversation with Pauline was... We got onto confidence, I think. We were talking about confidence of riders, about our market, that both of us have, a market that probably reflects who we are. Yeah. And our gender. So, you know, we have a lot of 40-year-old to 60-year-old female customers, I would say, and older, and some younger. But that's a real core market. And the modern equine industry is nothing if not challenging. There's so much we can learn out there, but so much that can make life really hard. And I mean, that's without, if we're going to get into 40 to 60-year-old women, that's without hitting menopause and all the crap that we have to go through, if you'll forgive me. So, we said, let's have a chat about it. The word shame came up, and we were talking confidence, security, safety. So we're going to have a real general chat. And we've had to actually cut short our natural chat over coffee and croissants because we're going, we need to film this. It's all too interesting. So we've decamped to a room with really good light. And we're going to just chat through all of these things from our own perspectives and about how we think, what we can talk about today, and some things that you can take away with you to help you think about security, confidence, safety and shame, and think about it differently in your horsey life and not let it become a real issue. Do you want to jump in, Pauline?
Yes, I'll start off. That real issue, that real obstacle is what I see when I go and meet with clients. And I felt myself, you know, there's the joy of social media now in equestrianism, which when I was in horses before didn't exist. That's how old I am. 10-year break, come back to horses, and suddenly, you know, the world's your oyster in terms of the access you have to see people ride and riding programs and so on and so forth.
We'll introduce Jenny.
Jenny insists being. But that's a double-edged sword, because what I'm seeing is a lot of riders saying to themselves quietly in their dark moments, why can't I do that? I'm not good enough. I can't safely hack with my horse, let alone ride a dressage test. I can't get him to load. our 20-metre circles are squares and I don't know what to do about it. I've got a sore hip, I've got a sore neck, whenever I ride it hurts. And
Oh, the joys of getting older,
it
the aches
does
and
get
pains.
But so much, what I also find, so much of that is something they confess to you halfway through their first lesson, or maybe their second lesson, or maybe after the lesson when they're putting their tack away and you're holding the horse. And there's a real sense of failure, and that's where the word shame came up for me, a real sense of, I'm no good, my horse is no good, I don't know what to do about it. I love my horse, I love riding, I'm not giving up, it makes me happy but it makes me really sad at the same time. And these things just aren't often talked about. And I feel what we can start doing today is starting to talk about them, because what I also believe is that there's big gaps in our education in the UK, maybe just in our age group, maybe just in our gender. Gwen, I'm sure we'll talk about, she has more access to the professional side of the equestrian industry, and I'm sure it's different there. But in the amateur side, the private individual, my goodness, if you're 40, 50 or 60, you grew up without being told or explained so many of the missing elements that could address that shame, or could address that feeling of lack of competence and confidence. And you know, we'll come on to them, I'll stop there, but it's just that when we were chatting over coffee, I wanted to raise that sense of shame and that feeling, because horsey people are quite tough, aren't they? They're quite, they're used to sucking stuff up and getting on with it. And I don't think it serves us very well.
Yeah.
But I think as well, and it's from a professional point of view as well, the more you learn, the less confidence you have in yourself, because the more you realise that you don't know. And there's so much information coming from so many different angles that you don't know, one person saying this and one person saying that. And there's some quite strong opinions.
Always.
And to try and find your way, and you're always trying to do what's right for your horse.
Yeah.
But who do you trust and who do you listen to? Because everybody's point of view differs, and it's such a huge, confusing minefield. And Facebook, you can say whatever you want. I could say the world's flat, and that's my opinion, and I'm just going to not listen to anybody.
And there'll be a Facebook group for that where lots of other people will agree with you.
Yeah. And then you think, well, am I the mad one because I think it's round?
Yeah.
And you start to question your own.
Again, this inward thinking, this shrinking back, this,
Is there something wrong with me? Am I looking too much into things? And I find that a lot with clients where they'll say, why is it always my horse? Why is there something wrong with my horse? And I'm like, it's not. It's because you are questioning and you're taking note of the subtle signs. Probably 90% of horses do that, but 90% of the owners just are maybe not oblivious, not paying attention, I don't know, but it's there, and they're just the ones that are...
Their education hasn't given them the understanding to know that that's incorrect.
Yes, yeah.
And we exist in a world where we see images from the very top levels of horses going unbelievably incorrectly in a way that's harmful to their bodies. And if you've been taught that that is right, then your whole world order is slightly screwed.
Yeah.
And that's, that you believe that's...
Yeah. And you've been taught that the pinnacle of your equestrian journey is to compete.
Yeah.
And to win, ideally, to get some sort of frilly ribbon. I mean, that's still deep in me, this sense that unless I'm out competing, I haven't yet arrived at where I should be if I own a horse. And everything else that you might have to do to take your time to get to a point where you can do that is actually wasting time and money, and we need to rush on.
Yeah, and we've got insults such as pony patter,
woo-woo.
woo-woo, and I think the whole Pirelli thing led to, they flap about with a carrot stick. And it's not to say we're going to jump up and down in favour of Pirelli necessarily, not at all, but it's too easy for competition riders to throw around those kind of insults. And we're all or most of us are on livery yards with people that might be a bit like that. I know when we had our initial conversation, and again this was another kind of light bulb connection moment, And we talked about that word shame because that's what we're feeling. And it's not guilt over having done one thing, is it?
No,
It's
sense of inadequacy and not being able to admit to it.
and it's identity.
Yeah.
Whereas guilt is about one thing you've done,
Yeah.
and shame is different. If anybody is interested, because this is where this name came up, there's a fabulous woman called Brene Brown who wrote a book on shame. It's actually real scientific research into shame, isn't it, and how debilitating it is, but where it comes from. So if you want to read a little bit more, or she has podcasts. She's a fabulous American lady with a Texan drawl.
Yeah. Nothing to do with horses.
No.
But you will recognise a lot of what she says if you've been around horses and are feeling frustrated in some way.
Yeah. So we wanted to get away from the shame and that feeling of inadequacy and why is my horse broken? Most horses are a bit broken. We're not supposed to ride them. And that will probably come up as a theme again and again. But how do I feel more confident? How do I feel more safe, more secure? So that's our theme. And I think we could probably start with groundwork because you guys have got two different perspectives on a bit of groundwork, on a bit of rehab work maybe, and how you work with customers who might be scared of doing groundwork, who might think they're never going to understand what groundwork means, being intimidated by it.
Or they're bored by it.
Yes, it's not fun, it's not interesting. Oh, my horse is bored by it. But, that fundamental thing is, well, I'll never be able to do that.
Yeah, and that's how I felt. I was never taught groundwork.
No.
Why should people do groundwork?
Why should they do it? Because my personal perspective from my own horses, why should you do groundwork? Because it's the best way to build up the horse's body, to correct crookedness without your weight on their back and with you on the ground able to see it, to correct it slowly so that the horse continually feels better rather than being physically challenged and feeling worse and goes back into itself or goes back to its, what do you call it, compensations? Why do it? Because it's a fast route if you want speed, if you want eventually to be able to do your lateral work and your dressage tests, then it's the quickest way to learn, I think, for both horse and rider. We might mention a few Facebook groups, but this Diana Waters slow walk work group, who teaches that actually a great way to learn lateral work for your horse is to do it yourself in your own body. Either on all fours, if no one's watching, or
let them watch.
Feel what? Imagine you are a quadruped. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Quadruped. And do a shoulder in, do a haunches in, try a half pass. Feel it in your own body. That sort of muscle memory that is where the horses live.
Yeah.
They're not intellectualising from a book what a half pass looks like. They know how it feels in their body. And if you feel it yourself from your groundwork, your own physical groundwork, you can then have a better sense of how to mould and encourage your horse to do it, and you can see if it's doing it right. Once it's doing it right, try it on board then, try ridden work then. But there are so many horses and ponies who posturally are moving incorrectly. And when you go to try and teach the rider, I can't drop a 20 metre circle because it's not the right shape because he keeps wanting to fall in. And you look at the horse, and as they lead the horse, Gwen's person to talk about this, but as they lead the horse towards the lesson, you can see that he's loading one shoulder more than the other. And there's no chance as soon as they were to sit on that horse for that horse to do a correctly bent 20 metre circle. How do you address that? Well, traditional way we were told to address it was more inside leg.
More aiding.
More inside leg, kick going, kick, out to the outside rein in some way, as though somehow, with your weight on top of that horse's spine, your leg can force its rib cage into a bend when actually the rib cage doesn't bend.
Yeah.
And that is the way you're going to fix your 20 metre circle. I mean, that is why I spent 5-10 years of my ridden life not progressing.
Doing 20 metre circles.
Doing 20 metre circles.
Badly.
And I'm coming off my horse dripping in sweat because I needed more inside leg. And I did not have the education then. Jenny, sit down, my dog is ruining this, sit down.
She's not. Oh.
I did not have the education then. No one taught me, and I paid lots of instructors lots of money to be taught this. I didn't know there was another way.
Yeah.
And one of the other ways, where to start, is groundwork.
Yeah. So how does groundwork fit in with your customers?
So I'm probably quite new to groundwork, and it was the difference that I saw in Pauline's horse
Right, yeah.
at the end of the winter, knowing that she didn't have facilities.
I don't have an arena.
No, so what have you been doing with your, why does your horse
Yeah.
look like this? And you gave me a quick, and it made sense for me, and probably where I've been going, that the horse that you can micromanage, but that's what we've always been taught, and so your horse keeps wanting to go left, so keep why is your horse wanting to be there? There's something restricting, and they should feel confident in their body and be able to manage their own space, that they can hold themselves up.
Absolutely.
And we should not be holding them up. And for me, the groundwork gives them the stability and the core strength and helps their posture. So it sets them up for going forward into riding, that you're starting with a straight horse, and that takes away the compensations, if you like, to build on that. Yeah.
And I think there are two elements, and this is where it goes back into a general sense of, well, who do I work with? So the thing about the confidence, if you're following somebody online or you're working with somebody in real life and you're not coming away at the end of the session feeling more confident about what you're doing and more empowered and less shame, then that's not helping you and that's not the person. And I think that's going to be key in all of this, is how do you sort wheat from chaff, and make sure that you're actually improving your own confidence. Because even if very little is improving with your actual horse, if you can see the little improvements and the person you're working with makes you feel good, you're going to make better progress. And the course, I've obviously been recommending the Diana Waters course, and I'm not sure whether that's how you found me originally.
No, I found you recommended as a saddle fitter who might be able to fix my saddle problem.
So one of the things about that course, and Annie Dillon, who I also recommend, there are other bits and pieces that I recommend to everybody, is the more we learn to observe, and the more we learn to be still and stop asking, stop micromanaging, stop aiding, the more we can be still in our space and spend time with our horse observing their reactions, while learning perhaps a bit of the theory about why their body's moving that way, but this ability to just sit and look and be, that is connection. And if you don't connect with your horse, you're simply telling it what to do.
Absolutely. And I add that to the list of things we've never been taught. Groundwork certainly is one, but the other big one for me is reading the horse's signals. That just, didn't exist as part of my education. So things that we now call calming signals, the twitching of the muscle, the slow blinks, the yawning, horses, where are they looking? There's so much information from your horse to you that can tell you whether you're making progress or not. It needn't only be in your own confidence, but the signals are so specific and so small that I certainly overlooked them for 90% of my equestrian life. Now I can't not see them.
They're screaming
They're screaming at me. And
you might regret learning half of this because we've been ignoring it.
And in a sense you do regret it, because like we were saying earlier, because it means you go slower. So whatever goal you had, if you want to get there quick, switch off now.
Yeah, that's not what this is about.
It's not what it's about. But if you want connection and if you want the horse to actually feel better about what's happening, understanding calming signals, and you know, again, Google's there. You can go away, and we don't need us to explain what those are. Find out exactly what's going on. But that is a huge missing chunk, because how does it help our confidence? Because if you let's just concrete example. So as Gwen said, I don't have an arena. I school my horses on my drive, which is about 10 metres by 8 metres. 2 nights ago we were trying a left shoulder 4 in walk with my pony, and I know he's stiff to the left. I know that he hasn't learnt to lift that shoulder up to the left, so there's a risk he's going to fall on the left. So, you know, trying it a couple of times, and then one time he got it right. He got it right for 2 steps. He managed to turn shoulder 4 to the left without leaning on the left shoulder. He lifted and turned, and I stopped. And he immediately started to yawn and to blink. And I don't think we fully understand yet what calming signals actually are, so I'm not suggesting that I could word for word interpret what he meant, but what I could see was there was a change in his demeanour from before that exercise working and afterwards. And what I would have done in my old life was say, let's do more of that. Brilliant, we've got it right, come on, let's try a bit harder, let's try a bit harder. But instead, I stopped, and I swear, he stood on that driveway, him and I, for about 8 or 9 minutes while this twitching continued and the eye blinking. And what I'm waiting for is eventually for it to resolve, and it often resolves in a big yawn or usually a shake, or the horse just comes back to you. Now, my understanding at the moment is that that is a horse processing. I don't think we can know for sure, but I'm working on that basis. That's a horse thinking something was different there. It felt okay. Let me just think about it for a while. And I know that's what Diana Waters talks a lot about in her book. Give the horse time to understand what just happened and see how he feels about it. And so 8-9 minutes, he does finally a big yawn and a shake, and then I put him back in the field. Now, Gwen asked me when she showed up today, how are you getting on? It's like, I don't know how to answer that question anymore, because I think Baz would say, that was great. I learned something new, it felt good in my body. And when I bring him out and try it again next time, we'll get 4 steps, or maybe half a circle. Now, from a traditional perspective, I'm just pissing about on the driveway, you know?
Pony patting!
It's just, what's going on here? Where's the achievement? Now, in my mind, you know, X number of months, strokes, years from now, that pony will be piaffing, okay?
Yeah.
And I will do a dressage test that will score 70%. That's what I intend still to work to that. I still have that intention and that ambition. I just have no idea how long it's going to take.
But if you spend the time now, certainly for me, we can maybe talk about my competition, delve into that a bit later, but when you spend the time and get the basics right, then by the time you get, you know, you're creeping just now, by the time you get to the advanced stuff, the horse is so well set up that it's just going to come, because it's easy. It's not, you're not forcing and trying to get these changes where the horse is blocked one way and it's all a big, it'll just, your horse is relaxed and set up and strong enough that they can, it'll just happen. So you're going to get to a stage and then
and that's
shoot forward.
Where it matters who you're working with, who's on your team, because, you know, I was doing all that work with my other pony, Tess, the pony that Gwen mentioned earlier, for about 6 months before, and Gwen was booked to come and see her again. Was it before Christmas or just after Christmas? It was round about the new. That was a big deal for me, Gwen coming to look at her, because I thought I could see a big change. This is a 15-year-old mare with croup high, a long sway back, and who walked like a duck.
And I will flag up, because we did have a comment when we put up photos of you on, and I can't remember your gelding's name.
Baz.
technically you're a bit big for them.
Yeah,
You're 20-ish% with tack kind of thing, you know.
bit below that, but yeah, close to it.
Yeah, and if you had a heavier saddle, you might be 20%.
Absolutely, that's another reason.
So some people will judge that they're not
Definitely.
even the right horses for you.
And they're probably not, you know.
But what's right?
What's right? If you know, but I am below the 20%.
Yeah.
The trouble is I'm tall, and these are 13.2 cogs we're talking about. So I'm aware that my body is such a lever on top of them. So trying to do everything right, starting from a less than promising base. That Gwen's coming and me not saying anything and her putting hands on the horse and saying, "What have you done?" That felt like 80% in a novice dressage test to me.
Yeah.
Because that's my horse's body that I'm making a difference to. So we should maybe talk about parameters of success, how our clients define success.
And if you can't observe your horse and observe the small changes, then it won't be a success for you.
No.
So it's learning to change that focus and develop different skills so that success becomes something very different.
Mm-hmm.
And success can simply be an increase in confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And your horse will be more confident because you've made them feel better in their body. And I know you, at the beginning of talking about your ponies, you said about, so why does groundwork give us confidence or make us safer?
Uh-huh.
If horses feel better in their body, they are more relaxed.
One big thing I learned was horses have to feel balanced to feel safe.
Yeah.
So the key thing we learn in French classical Enlightened Equitation training is that the horse will always move under the rider's weight. That's how seat aids work. You move your weight to one side, the horse goes with you.
I always talk about if you had a toddler on your shoulders, if the toddler leans one way, if you don't go that way and step underneath them, then they might pull you over.
Yeah.
And the horse will step underneath you as you shift your weight.
So we use that impetus is the wrong word I'm looking for when something is a what's the word? Something just comes naturally.
It'll come to us.
Yeah. We use that to our advantage, but the point is the horse feels confident when it feels balanced because it does not want to fall over.
Yeah.
You know, you fall over as a horse and you're eaten by a lion. You'll do whatever it takes to fall. And so much bucking, I have learned, comes from when the horse feels unbalanced. Whether it be a young horse putting a saddle on for the first time and a rider on a mountain, massive challenge to its balance. But even later, and again back to Tess, back to this unpromising old fell pony mare, who's bucked me off once, and it was at the start of our relationship, before I was putting all this into practice. She was bent in trot, I hadn't got her straight, balanced in trot, bent trot. I asked for a canter transition and she just went, off you go. And I've never had it before or since. And now I understand that because she was unbalanced in the trot. I then asked her to canter, she said it's a step too far and you must get off.
And a trot canter transition, I think, is one of the hardest things that you can do with any horse, let alone on novice horses.
Absolutely. I wouldn't do it now. I do walk to canter.
Right.
When we're ready. But to the point of how do we get confidence and safety? How does groundwork matter in that? Because the more balanced our horses are over their 4 feet, the safer they'll feel, the less likely they are to resist us.
Yeah, completely. And it will relate to pain. And I just want to really flag this up, that being out of balance, moving in a compensatory manner, will turn into pain.
Yeah.
Almost certainly.
So we deal very much in the osteopathic side of things with allostatic loading. I don't know if you're aware of that. Homeostasis. So ideally we want to be in homeostasis where there's enough energy in the system to deal with life's everyday occurrences and everything going on. And I bring my son into this actually because he's 11 years old, 12 now, get that right? And he generally deals with life quite easily. And there was a time, a couple of years ago, there was a lot going on at home and a lot going on at school that I wasn't aware of, but there was nothing. And then one morning as we were going to school, he went to open his bag and the zip broke and he had a complete meltdown.
Oh.
And it turns out because there was so much going on, you know, you're coping, and then suddenly that small little thing that just tips it, and it was the zip on his bag breaking. But that wasn't the issue, but it just didn't. And horses are the same. They can deal with so much, but then if they've got pain going on, if we have we have the 5 freedoms, if they're not quite right, they don't have any energy left in their system to deal with the flower pot at the side of the arena that's moved. And it's not spooky horses, it's your generally, we're not classing them all the same, but generally that horse there's something not right somewhere that they don't have the energy to deal with life, and you're constantly tipping them into the sympathetic nervous system where they're just firing all the time, and they
fight or flight.
And they're on the verge of that. So for me, it's a bit of a alarm bell. Somebody said he's always like that, he's always spooky.
So you say that taking pain away is one large reduction.
That could be a large reduction. You then have, and a huge one for me, their gut is such a huge and probably overlooked quite a lot. I know ulcers, so many horses have it, but then we're inflicting onto them as predators and prey, and so what can you expect? We enforce ourselves on them. So you're dealing with that. But then also what we feed them as a huge, if you look at feeds, we're basically feeding them McDonald's 90% of the time, so how can we expect their guts to function normally? And then you add in all the supplements and the chemicals their body is then having to process all this on top, and then you're just reducing all the time the energy
available to deal with life
or
deal with a rider.
I have a rehab trainer I've worked with for many years, and I don't know whether this is his expression, Dan Wayne, equestrian, or whether it came originally from Manolo Mendez. But he talks about boiling point, and that when horses either lose their shit or have physical breakdown is because they have tipped over boiling point. And your son tipped over boiling point. Some people call it trigger stacking. They're all similar concepts, aren't they? Related at least. And his aim was always, if your horse is running at 80 degrees, it isn't going to take that much to push them up over the 100. And so we need to look at every aspect and take that down, because if you can run them at 50 degrees, when the SHIT hits the fan, you tell them a potty mouth, sorry, but when it hits the fan, the horse has got that energy, that headspace, that emotional regulation. We've not used that term yet, but that's sort
very
of
much
part of it. And the one-sidedness, the side on which the horse is weaker, if that's, I think, to the outside, then they're normally more spooky that way. So they'll go, well, they weren't spooky on the other rein. Well, that's the weak side of their body, where they know if there's a predator attacks them from that side. Oh, Jenny, she's getting so much love.
She's determined to steal the show.
So that's why they're spookier on that side, because they're weaker on that side. So this is where, hopefully this is screaming safety to everyone at home.
I hope so, and confidence for the horse too. I mean, we're both mammals. Our nervous systems aren't going to be that different in a lot of ways, and when you see a horse straighten and strengthen, the posture, we recognise it without any training, because the horse just looks more proud. It just carries itself. It's the posture that you see bad competition riders force, round and forward.
But of course, it's only over the front end that's round, which is probably the bit that shouldn't be so round.
But you feel that pride in that lift, and if the horse, I don't think that posture, when offered naturally, lies. I think you can look confidently at a horse with that posture, in the context that's natural for them. It's going to look different on a 16-2 warm blood than it does on a 14-hand Highland. But we're humans, and we recognise that posture, that strength and pride, and that can be validation for you that everything that you're doing, your feeding, your body work, your tack fitting, your training, is literally building the horse up. You don't have to be an expert. I think, in fact, what we're learning, unfortunately, with social licence to operate, is that it's the normal public that can spot the travesties
Yeah.
in the horse industry now. And sometimes some of us who've been in it a long time are blind to it.
We've been steeped in essentially a borderline, maybe not even borderline, abusive industry.
Well, the phrase, they just have to get on with it.
Yeah, we only ask them to do this one an hour a day, or
Do they really have to just get on with it? And why are they not just getting on with
That's
it?
I am going to put her away, people. Excuse me a second.
I will just briefly refer anybody who's not seen it. So we'll talk about calming. We've talked about calming signals, and that you can go and look them up. But the other thing that you should be able to access, I think, pretty easily is Sue Dyson's 24 pain
signals.
pain signals, whatever it is. There are so many different versions of that you can go and find people talking about it. So I think that's a really good starting point to start thinking about your own observation skills if you haven't already. If you can start to recognise most of those symptoms of pain, then you'll also be more alert to when you're getting more of the calming signals.
Yeah.
So that's an easy starting place, hopefully.
I think a good one is how your horse responds when you bring the tack out.
Yep.
And it's such a simple one.
Or even catching them in the field.
Yeah.
Why doesn't your horse want to be caught?
You bring your saddle and your horse is going away to the back, or you're trying to put
Yeah.
the bridle on and its head's way up here.
As a saddle fitter, that would be an immediate need to call a saddle fitter.
Yeah.
And don't carry on riding.
Yeah.
Don't just put it on anyway, do some groundwork.
And that's why we're here, because my pony Baz, I mean, I'm sitting here as some kind of expert, which I'm not, but I've been there. We're only here because I had a pony in the saddle that he was being ridden in, didn't want to side up to the mounting block, was nappy out walking, out hacking, tossed his head when the bit went in, and I'm worried about this, starting to have all those feelings come up that something's not right, but at the same time you go, but it must be right because I'm desperate to ride him up and doing everything right, and he lives out with friends and it should be okay, and I can't afford another saddle, and that dread that descends that everything's wrong and we're going to have to go back to square one, and that's why it's hard for people to accept it, because I understand that feeling.
Yeah.
But then, 6 months on, rehab, groundwork, new saddle, new bridle, good team. He's a happy wee pony.
Yeah. I think as well, certainly for me, and a lot of people find it hard to believe because I can think rationally and help people build plans easily for their horse, but when it comes to mine, completely fall apart and I don't know what I'm doing. And I as well have people, solid people that come and say, wait a minute, think about it, what would you say if this was a client? Oh, well, do this or that or the other. But when it's hard to take a step back.
Isn't it?
We're all triggered emotionally.
So emotional.
We're emotional beings. And so it's just, I guess, becoming more and more aware of it, finding the people that can help you not react.
Yeah.
It's that reaction, isn't it? It's the, okay, what does this mean?
Yeah.
And not going into shame, because it is shame. It's part of shame. And it's really funny, because I know we talked about this yesterday, because Gwen and I met yesterday at a fitting, oh God, I knew this would happen at some point, that my train of thought would